Welcome everyone to another episode of FGO Servant War Room, where we discuss and plan around your favorite servants' chances at a real Holy Grail War. My name is Chevalier, and today I bring you a video about Chevalier de Jong. Last video I asked for suggestions on what servants you would like to see appear in the next video. While there were some interesting suggestions, I ultimately had to pick one at the end. So, without further delay, let's check out Chevalier de Jong. Let's talk about Astolfo's partner in crime, and despite it's a vivid member of the Marie fan club, Chevalier de Jong. So, first of all, let's look at his stats. I'll be completely honest. When I looked up his stats, I was completely caught by surprise by how high they were. I mean, sure, stats don't actually matter that much overall, but they are still important to look at. Depending on the class, different stats will have more importance, and for a saber, de Jong's stats are impressive. As for his skills, de Jong has a total of 5 skills, 2 from his class and 3 from him personally. His class skills, magic resistance and riding, with a C and B respectively. The riding skill is mostly irrelevant, although it can provide some faster transportation if you manage to provide him with a vehicle. As for his magic resistance, it only works on protecting de Jong from simple magecraft, so a master can still harm him even with more complex spells. So overall, his class skills are nothing to note about. As for his personal skills, he has Eye of the Mind True, which is, in my opinion, one of the most powerful yet oddly dismissible skills a servant could have. It's a skill gained through experience and training for life. Those with this skill are able to predict others' movements and actions through calculations. It basically means that those who have the skills are generally masterminds at manipulating the flow of the battlefield. This is the skill that allowed Archer to plan and survive through the entirety of Unlimited Blade Works' route in Fate Stay Night. Basically put, if there's a 1 chance of winning, servants with this skill will find a way to turn that 1% into a reality. So it is not a skill that you can just ignore. His other skill, Self-Suggestion, is weird, and there's parts about it that don't really make much sense. It's a self-hypnotizing skill that causes the user to believe whatever they want. Despite its ridiculous description of making any suggestion true, in practice it only works as a mental defense against anything that might influence the mind. So it's basically a skill that protects de Jong from mental interference. In general, a very useful skill to actually have, especially considering that de Jong's magic resistance is not that high. So despite having a low magic resistance, de Jong's self-suggestion will protect him from any trickery that a caster might try to do on his mind. Finally, you have Beautiful Appearance, which basically increases these chances of de Jong having a successful negotiation with pretty much everyone. Essentially, enemies are so mesmerized by de Jong's beauty that they can't help themselves from agreeing with him. This, in general, is not that useful in your average Holy Grail War. However, obviously, like anything, negotiations can sometimes be used in war. In fact, they happen a lot in war, but Holy Grail War is a bit different. But there might be situations where Beautiful Appearance might come to handy. But in general, it's not a skill that you can rely in combat. So in general, you can ignore this skill. In other words, de Jong actually has an impressive set of skills. Sure, they're not the best. His magic resistance is low for a saber, and Beautiful Appearance is mostly useless, and riding, again, not really that useful outside of riders. However, the combination of his even low magic resistance, Eye of the Mind True, Self-Suggestion, and his high stats do make him a bit of a good fighter, at least in paper. However, let's look also at his Noble Phantoms. At the moment, Dion has 3 known Noble Phantoms, which are all part of a sword dance. Because of it, it's likely that Dion has even more Noble Phantoms from that dance. However, for the purpose of this video, I'll only consider the 3 that we know of as of making this video. First dance, Sword Dance of Falling Lilies, is a single target Noble Phantom that performs both a mental and physical attack on the target. As Dion dances, he mesmerizes the target, overall decreasing their stats while also going for a kill attack. Even after the Noble Phantom's completion, the debuffs will continue on the target. This version has a low cost for the Noble Phantom, meaning that it's easy for Dion to use and he can probably spam it a lot. However, it does have a very small range, basically melee range, because for Dion to actually use it, he does have to attack the enemy. So, although Dion can spam it, it's probably not a dance that Dion can casually perform in front of the enemy without getting attacked back. Then you have a second dance, Gorgeous Splendor of Blooming Lilies, which is his Noble Phantom in FGO. It's essentially the same as his first dance, except it's AoE, it hits a lot of targets, and it doesn't have a physical component to it. So the good part is that because it doesn't have the physical attack, the range of this Noble Phantom is a lot higher, so Dion can use it from a safer distance, and that's about it. That is essentially what it is. It's the same, it will mesmerize the target, it will debuff them, and that's it. And it has a higher range. Finally, his third dance, Profuse Blooming of Fluttering Lilies, which is basically just a more powerful version of his second dance. Normally Dion can't use this Noble Phantom because it costs all of his mana to use it. However, unlike his previous dance, which have range limitations, the third one seems to affect everyone that looks at it, so there is some benefit to it. Overall though, you probably should just ignore the third dance unless you're like really desperate, and even then I probably would not recommend it. Dion is a giant debuffer machine with high stats and decent skills for combat. Sounds fair, I guess. As for his feats, Dion is a bit all over the place. His biggest role was in Agatha, but for the most part, there's not many things that can be said about that story. Due to Dion always being with Astolfo, it's difficult to tell if Dion was actually useful or if it was all Astolfo doing the heavy lifting. That said, even if Dion had the help of Astolfo, I'll at least give credit where credit is due, and Dion did at least survive against a more powerful version of Hercules. So if you summon Dion in the Holy Grail War, are you set to win? Or dead on arrival? Well, you're not set to win, nor are you dead on arrival. But it's also not complicated. Dion is definitely the type that you can't judge by the cover or even by his mechanics in FGO. He is much stronger in combat than he would seem, and his Noble Phantoms are really useful even in 1v1. But as a saber, he will probably feel lackluster, and his glaring lack of firepower is going to be a serious problem. That said, if you do summon Dion, you should still feel pretty good at your odds, and the options Dion will provide you as a servant should definitely help you a lot more than most servants would. Strategies can you use to better help your chances? Well, overall, knowing your enemies and who they are is going to be important. I mean, this is always important regardless of which summon you summon. However, Dion does provide you with tools to help you in this endeavor. Using Dion's Eye of Mind True to figure out potential actions that your enemies might take, and then using Dion's beautiful appearance to spy on those close to the masters can lead you to some important findings on who your enemies are. Remember, Eye of the Mind True isn't just for combat, it's also for planning, and Dion should be able to help you get some pretty neat plans to win the war. So a simple strategy is to simply listen to Dion. He will probably find you a way to win the Holy Grail War, or to at least not die, which is always a good start. Once you figure out who your enemies are, you should act accordingly to how bad your chances are. If you find out that the enemy servants are easy to deal with, just go by norm and just fight them 1v1, the Yon will not have any difficulties. However, if you find an enemy servant you can't deal with, then seek an alliance. Find a servant that's weak against mental attacks, and the Yon should be able to mesmerize both the servant and the master and get you a nifty alliance. Hey, if there's a situation where beautiful appearance can help you, it would be in this one. Just have the Yon negotiate with the master and the enemy servant, and they should probably agree with him. That said, be careful if someone ends up summoning Mary or any French royalty for that matter, because if they do, you can be certain the Yon will abandon you and fight for them instead. As for his personality, the Yon has a very normal personality. Even for a servant, the only thing to note about him is his devotion to the French royal family and his ambiguous gender. Overall, you shouldn't have any issues with him, unless again someone summoned a member of the French royal family, at which point you're probably going to be forced into an alliance with them, and if you want to win, you'll probably have to force a command seal on the Yon to kill the French royal family. So the Yon, I'll give him a B rank. The Yon has this aura of average around them, yet the combination of his skills, stats, and noble phantoms definitely put him above average. I cannot call him anything but above average. While he's not super powerful, he's what you would call an efficient servant. Unless the enemies have powerful ranged noble phantoms, the Yon should be able to fight the majority of servants well in 1v1 fights. His biggest weakness though are servants with mental resistance and also his lack of firepower. Berserkers and Riders should be, on average, the Yon's most difficult matchups, as Berserkers with high mat enhancement will be immune to charm, and the Yon will have no way to deal with powerful mounts. Regardless though, if you summon the Yon, you should be pretty decently well off, especially since he occupies the Saber class and you don't have to worry about other powerful sabers showing up. And thank you for watching. That was the Yon's video. It was definitely an interesting watch. I never actually used the Yon in FGO, so I kinda only had like this very rough idea of what the Yon was. And I was expecting so many different things, like actual spying skills, and I didn't find any of that. I just found like a brute. I just found a very strong fighter, which was not what I expected. So this was a surprise. I did think about talking about his spice competency and whatnot. However, the problem with that is that it's more to do with his knowledge rather than any skill related to it. And so it kind of enters into the same strategy of just spying on your enemies. That said, you know, that was definitely something. I wanted to do a more casual type videos. However, when I tried to do the Yon video in a casual, I ended up with almost an hour of me just rambling. And clearly I can't have an hour-long video because, oh my god, is it tedious to edit. Just 10 minutes is tedious to edit. An hour-long oh my god, no, I would have to cut so much stuff. So I ended up doing a more, ended up doing a more controlled version. So yeah. Anyway, tell me what you thought. Tell me if you agree, you disagree. Like, subscribe, unsubscribe, dislike. Do whatever you want. You are free, my friend. Free! And also, give me more suggestions. Which next servant you'd like to see. I really did like, for those who were wondering, other suggestions that I was considering talking about was Kiyohime. Definitely was a servant I was very curious about talking and trying to figure out, you know, whether or not she would be that good in a Holy Grail War, because she does, at least from what I understand, seem like an actual powerful servant. but I question whether she would actually be that powerful. However, because I had just talked, Sasaki Kojiro is also a Japanese servant, I thought, okay, I'll talk about someone who's not from the same region this time. And so I went for the French spy here. Anyway, thank you for watching. Until next time, goodbye, bye, whatever. I'm out.